think they're going to say hello back?
I don't know. If everybody could say hey, because that's how you say hello in Swedish. Pretty cool.
That's not bad. So, Alex, SoundCloud.
Yes.
To begin with, tell us about the origins. And I've heard this is something about making the internet a noisier place.
Yeah, I think, I mean, if we go right back to the beginning, it was actually, it was a very sort of selfish thought, actually. My co-founder Eric and I, we'd always been heavily into sound, creating music, creating sounds for movies and stuff, and we'd always been really into the web. And we actually, in the beginning, the sort of first kind of incarnation was we just needed a very simple tool to be able to send sound files to each other and be able to give good feedback on them. So that's how the whole thing of like visualizing sound with a waveform, putting timed comments, everything, all of those things kind of came from there. But I think that was sort of our starting point, and what we realized really early was just that, what we're really interested in here is like all of these amazing social platforms being built that allow people to connect around the world through photos, through videos, through text, basically making the world, a little bit smaller. All of that was so fascinating and so amazing, yet like our favorite form of expressing stuff was through sound. And even then, there was just this, the web was so silent, and we figured we need to have that kind of a platform for sound as well. And I think that's when it really shifted from being, this is like, a geeky tool that we need to, oh my God, this has to exist in the world, and it's like it's our mission to go and do it.
Mm-hmm. And so what kind of a problem did it become to solve? Because you're talking about social platforms, so obviously your software has to fit in with those places.
Yep.
And also, what about user habits? Because it takes time to listen to a sound.
Yep.
And we're all terribly impatient. We like text and pictures.
Sure.
And we screen through stuff. So how do you deal with those issues?
So I think, you can look at very specific things, like very specific problems that it solves. Like, for instance, I'm a musician. I have an upcoming album, and I want to be able to spread that across the entire web through Facebook, through SoundCloud, through Twitter. Like, that becomes something that's very easy to do. So you can solve specific problems like that. But I think on sort of a broader level, what we're interested in is just anybody being able to share moments and connect through sound. So it's more about unlocking something great than necessarily addressing a specific problem out there. I think Twitter is a good example of that as well, where like it does solve specific problems, but overarching, it's more about enabling a new kind of behavior. And why I think sound is so cool is that, first off, I mean, I've always been a sound geek, so that's probably no surprise that I find sound really cool. But I think that, there's a couple of things that are special about sound. First off, it's really broad. Like, it could mean music from Snoop or 50 Cent or Bruce Springsteen. And it can mean, a baby's first words, or a newscast, or a political speech, or a lecture, or somebody having a conversation. Sound is really all of these different things. And what I find really cool about it is that sound tends to evoke more of an emotional reaction with people than, say, the written word. There's some like neuroscience behind it, but it tends to be that, you hear and then you feel. So bringing more sound to the web, I think, is a way to make the web a place where people feel more, which I think is really cool. But then you also have these like very specific things of like sound is incredibly simple to create, right? We're all walking around with these amazing microphones in our pockets. Like, I mean, I have an Android and an iOS phone, and the mic on them are just like incredible. And it's like one button to record something, so it's super, super simple. Like, we joke and say that it's 140 times simpler than Twitter. So it's a single button to create. So simple, easy creation. And if you're talking about sound being slower to consume, that's true than, say, a text if you're just looking at transferring the information. But sound you can consume it in parallel while doing other things as well, which I think is sort of the only thing the only sort of content form you can really consume in parallel. So if you imagine how much time you can spend with a game every day, or how much time you can spend watching a video every day, it's fairly limited. if you have some other stuff to do, at least. But when you think about sound, and especially like today when we have smartphones, we have connected cars, connected TVs, we're basically connected all the time, which means that sound can be following us around throughout our entire day. So, all that time in the car, all that time commuting, all, the time brushing your teeth, all of this. Those are all moments where you can be listening to things and consuming sound in parallel while doing other stuff. So it can be slower in terms of information transfer, but you have more time to do it, and it also conveys, I think, more of an emotional quality than just sort of the written word.
Now, SoundCloud has also seen a recent overhaul, a redesign.
Yep.
It's very beautiful. Well done.
Thank you. I agree.
Of course you do. He's going to tell you how lovely it is now. In which case,
it is.
Why is it lovely? What were the changes, and why were they required?
So it's the next SoundCloud. It's a redesign and sort of an upgrade of our web application. And you can go to next.soundcloud.com and request an invite for the beta and try it out. And I think so. The backdrop for doing that was that we've had this tremendous growth and signing up over 1.5 million users every month and just getting this massive traction around SoundCloud. And the reason for that, I think, is very straightforward. It's that we have 2.3 billion people online, and for every single one of those persons, sound is an incredibly important part of their lives. So we're kind of lucky enough to get a lot of their sort of their energy and excitement about sound. And what that has led to is that all of these people, all these new people signing up on SoundCloud they're very passionate, and they're very explicit and let us know what they want and what they need. So we basically just end up with a long list of everybody saying we want more, we want more sounds, we want more SoundCloud. So we took a lot of that and tried to incorporate some of it into new features, but we also felt that the web had progressed so much over the last couple of years, so it was really a chance for us to rebuild the main web application, design it in a way that's much more gorgeous, but also easier to use, way faster, and way more social. So that was kind of the backdrop. We learned a lot from our mobile applications, which we tried to bring into the web app as well. But yeah, and I think what we kind of landed with, apart from something that is sort of faster, more gorgeous, and just for me at least, way more engaging. I'm kind of borderline too addicted to the next SoundCloud. I'm canceling meetings just to sort of be able to sort of play around on the site.
A good thing to like your own product.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sending tons of feedback about it. But I think there's a couple of things that are cool with it as well. It's we're making it much easier for people to share sounds. So now with the next SoundCloud, you can repost sounds. So you find something you like, you repost it to your network, which means that much higher chance for the creator of that sound to get a wider audience for what they've done. We have cool stuff like real-time notifications and keyboard short commands. You can loop around and sounds jump forward in them. So I actually address this thing of going through sounds faster, so you can actually skip in them. And then we've added more sound as well by sort of introducing continuous playback throughout the entire site. So you just seamlessly explore around and have sounds playing in the background all the time. And also allowing people to create sets, so collections of sounds in this really cool new way. So often a collection of sounds will look, in many cases, like an Excel spreadsheet, which for me seems kind of wrong. Then the way we decided to look at it was, we visualize sounds through these waveforms. This sort of informational but also gorgeous way of looking at sounds. So when we were thinking about doing sets, we wanted to use that same thing. So if you're creating a collection of sounds now, it's just several sounds after each other, creating one continuous long waveform. So you're used to how you interact with it through how the site works. It's just that now it can be all these collections of cool stuff.
Excellent. And so with the original tagging idea that works on SoundCloud as well, where people can comment on sounds that you've put or music that you've created, do you see other ways of using this? Because as someone who works in radio, I find it handy to be able to time code parts of an interview, maybe.
Right, yeah. I think that there's a lot of things that can be done around the idea of having this sort of just this sort of this axis, this time axis around the sound as well. You've seen people do exciting things with just the comments themselves. Like you can do this really simple but powerful stuff as, say that there's a speech from somebody and they're referencing different websites or things, and then you just put a timed comment in with a link to that place. Just really simple things like that take a piece of sound into something where you can actually listen to it and then explore the directions that people are talking about. We've also seen, people recording, and this one was surprising to me, like recording earnings calls, putting that up and referencing the different financial documents within there. And I've seen some cool hacks as well, where people have taken it even further and used the timed comment as a starting point for displaying an image on the website, or like scrolling the website or stuff like that. So you just have these cue points throughout the sounds where you can make an action happen. But I think people have done cool things with it, even just from the perspective of, like I record something and put it up. Seeing like where people actually comment in the sound has just been really interesting. Even if somebody just drops a comment like, "Oh, I really love the sound of this," just to see where they actually felt that. Like was it in the first, was it in the intro, was it in the midsection, was it towards the end? As a creator, like I find that really, really fascinating. In order to get like a little bit deeper understanding of like how people are actually reacting to the stuff that I'm doing.
You mentioned the hacks that can be created. How important are hack days, working with developers, opening up your API to also your own development for products and as a company?
I mean, it's been really important on many different levels. I think overall, for me, hacking is like, it's very similar to how designers work with prototypes, and something that like I've always loved that approach of like you're solving a question by actually doing things, by exploring things, not just trying to think it all through, but you're starting to like work on it, and that helps sort of guide your thinking. So that mentality of like learning which questions you're asking and what the answers are by actually doing stuff, I think is tremendously powerful. Hacking is just a great example of that, and doesn't have to be limited to writing code. You can hack in like in any discipline basically. But for us, it's always been a big part. Like we had our public API around the platform right when we launched publicly. So even when we were tiny, like there was an API that people could use, and it was really about the idea of the web being, by definition, its architecture is this interconnected thing, right? And I almost see like web apps as these different Lego blocks that you piece together, and you can build something great by many different parts. If they're not interoperable, you're just left with these islands, right? So just from a philosophy, it was important for us to not be an island on the web, but actually be a Lego block in the entire web. And so we had our own hackathons in the beginning, but then Dave Haynes, who runs our content site, he created the Music Hack Day, which is been going on for a long time now. I've been in cities all over the world, and like those events, if you're interested in anything like sort of tech and sound related, like that's the most fun thing you can go to. It's just amazing. Like I think there's one. The most recent one I was at was in New York. I think there was like 75 hacks done in a weekend, and some of them were amazing. So that's been a big part. We're just planning an internal hack day now as well, and there's a news hack day coming up in San Francisco now as well, which is really interesting. How you can use sound technology and news and sort of hack it all together into cool new experiences of news, and that's something which I think is really interesting. We've seen, like Al Jazeera have been doing a lot of really interesting stuff on SoundCloud, and a lot of different news organizations really, really using sound as a way to get out to people as well. I've seen throughout the Occupy movement and the Arab Spring how people are recording things like, right there in the moment and sharing that. So I think there's a lot of things happening around news, sound, and tech at the moment.
And so, is freemium still the model that you use, and is it still the right model moving ahead?
Yeah, it's the model we launched with, and it's the same model we have today. We've made a few tweaks to it along the way, but it works nicely for us. I like the simplicity of it. It's really as simple as, this is the product. If you really like it, if it's really meaningful to you, then you'll pay for it. And it's sort of, it's just a very simple relationship between us and our users.
And how would that work then? I mean, you've mentioned news organizations as well. Is there scope to charge brands a little bit more for them to be creative with your tools?
I don't think so yet. We'll see what happens. But at the moment, it's been a remarkably simple and flexible model, because it's allowed us to have the API completely open and just allow anybody to build things on it however they want, without getting into all these complex additional layered business models around it. And also, for larger organizations, people tend to have several accounts. It's a very sort of personal product in a way, that even if you're with a big company, you tend to have a personal account, and that's what you see with bigger artists and stuff. They often have their own account because they want to interact directly with people. So it's been a pretty flexible model for us, and it seems to be doing well. So in the future, we'll see.
Okay, and you've seen recent integration with a few well-known social platforms,
right?
But also you've driven with part of the new redesign to improve profiles as well.
Yep.
Is this part of your not being an island, as it were, so that users are accessible on-site as well as off?
Well, I think our existing profiles needed a bit of work to make them sort of easier to use. The new ones are more focused on the visual elements of the waveforms, and also more visual elements of the users. So I think it was needed to make it a bit more usable and more compelling. But I think for us, it's always been important that, and why we've done all these integrations and work together with Facebook and Twitter and Tumblr and others, is that if you've created something, it's not necessarily, as a creator, it's not so important for you where you're connecting with people through whatever it is you made. It's more important that you can do it, and in some cases, with as many people as possible. So if that happens on SoundCloud.com, on Tumblr, on Twitter, or on Facebook, doesn't really matter for us. We just want it to be this fluid experience across devices and across platforms.
And so, thinking creatively when you're working with sound, and projecting 5 or 6 years ahead, speculating on technology.
Sure.
What would you like to see for accessibility? I mean, mobile access to sound is quite nice, but you always need the connection.
Yeah. So 5, 6 years, that's a long time. I'm thinking about how much we can get done in those 5, 6 years. So I think ultimately, I think that there's 6 billion people on the planet. There's 2.3 billion people that are connected at this point. For every single one of those people, sound is an essential part of how they experience the world. From the moment they wake up to the moment they go to bed, they're hearing stuff, they're in conversations, they hear music, they dance, they listen to the radio. Sound is such a key part of how you perceive the world. And at the same time, we're spending more and more of our time mediated or being social with people through mediated channels. So more and more of our lives are mediated. And in the future, everything's going to be mediated through the internet, every single thing. So we have these two things of sound being a tremendous key part of being human, and the web and mediated sort of interactions becoming bigger and bigger. The issue with that at the moment is that the online interactions at the moment are mainly based on sort of visual communication. And for me, that feels like it's not the full richness of what it means to be human. So the web is great. I love the web, but it's at its starting point. And we've just sort of done a couple of different things there. So I'm really excited over the next couple of years of seeing sound take a much bigger role on the web in general, and really coming from the perspective of wanting to bring that richness, all the things that we've associated with sound and the offline experience for, forever, to really make that part of the online experience as well. So 5 or 6 years from now, I don't like we won't be there yet in terms of having as much sound as I want on the web, but we'll definitely be a lot closer. I think it will be normal for us to think about listening to this to the web, or listening to the internet. It will be normal for us to speak to the internet, and I think it will be less clunky than it is today, and just a more fluid experience, which will have a lot more sound to it. Mm-hmm. And again, hopefully, no matter if you're listening to a speech, a weather update from your friend, whatever it is you're listening to, hopefully that means that there's more emotions happening and more people being moved by their experiences on the web in 5 or 6 years than today.
Mm-hmm. And just finally, to take up the theme of the conference, mm-hmm. without skipping tracks, how can sound be faster than real time?
Oh, you can speed it up. That's a simple thing. You have this, like, in many audio books and stuff, you can press like 2x. I love that button. I'm like, yeah, I'm reading this twice as fast now, or hearing this twice as fast. So you can do faster than real time by actually listening to it faster. But I do think that there's an important point just in this thing of like real time, yes, but also look at the entire 24 hours of somebody's days. We are very obsessed with a certain window of that day. There's a whole other range of hours that people can be enjoying things as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Alex.
Cool, thanks a lot.
Cheers.